Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have accepted to suspend for 30 days the planned indefinite nationwide strike scheduled to begin on Tuesday, the 3rd of October 2023, which was supposed to be today. Now, this was disclosed by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Simon Lalong, as the outcome of the meeting that was held. The resolution followed over 5 hours of deliberations between the federal government and the Labour at the Chief of Staff conference room of the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Now, just a quick reminder that there have been frictions between the various Labour bodies like the NLC and the TUC since the removal of fuel subsidy on the price of premium motor spirit, what we all call petrol, that led to a ripple effect across all sectors that also led them to initially issue a strike notice which had elapsed, and then they were just about to embark on another one before they came to this consensus. Now, on the show today, we'll be talking about the understanding that they had that made them come to such an agreement and whether or not they think or hope that these agreements will be upheld. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Now, before we go straight to the conversation, I'd like to introduce my guest. I have joining me Barrister Monday Mawah, a legal practitioner all the way from Abuja. Thank you so much, Barrister Mawah, for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you, and good afternoon to listeners and viewers.
Good afternoon to you too. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Also in the studio with me, I have Comrade Amechi Asugwuni, former Deputy President, Nigeria Labour Congress. Thank you so much, Comrade Amechi, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, gentlemen, let's go straight to it. Now, I'm going to start with you, Barrister Mawah. Among the agreements that was reached, and this is a bit of a deviation, but I would like to start with this. There was a leadership crisis between the National Union of Road Transport Workers and the purported prescription of the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria. What exactly is the genesis of that problem? Barrister Mawah?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
All right.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
The National Union of Road Transport Workers and their sister counterpart, they have always had this superiority complex over the year, and I don't think this time is the one coming. This time is strange to us. But you see, the issue with them, it has always been issue of leadership tussle between the two body, and more particularly this time, you know, there is always this alliance of any of this body with the government in power. And what am I trying to say in a nutshell? Sometimes there's always this belief that if you did not support the government in power, once that government come on board, they look for one way or the other to do a kind of leadership change. And sometimes this change could come by way of, it looks sometimes like a kind of coup d'etat. But in whatever dimension it might come, once there is a change in national leadership, I mean the presidency of the country, any of the leadership of the union that is not loyal to the president in power, there's always tendency that the president in power, one way or the other, not directly, through its own loyalists in the union, might want to introduce one or two things to ensure that there's a leadership change that will ensure that they have those that are loyal to them. I think that is what transpired in a couple of days ago, where the president of Haji, or they call him Professor Akim Amosu, was changed overnight with the new leadership we have today, the president of Mr. Agbede. So there is nothing strange about it. It is part of their system. Leadership change is part of the struggle. So I think there is nothing strange about what transpired. So as at the moment, from the little information I have at my disposal, Amosu has given way for their new president, who they call Agbede. And I think that is the position for the moment. But what seems to be generating all of this is that their sister counterparts seem not to be supporting the new body that had been brought in place. And that is where we are now be seeing this leadership tussle between them. And I think sometime last month, they had some little fracas that almost led to the death of one or two members of the union. I think that is what is happening at the moment. I think it's normal. It's part of their own way of acting. I think that is what I would say on that.
All right. Thank you for that, Barrister Mawah. Now, Comrade Amechi, we understand that a resolution has been made, but can you give us just the summary in your own opinion or in your own understanding of what this resolution between the federal government and the labor union is?
I think for me, we have done some analysis with regards to the MOU reached, and we agree. For me, I expected such because federal government allowing the labor to jointly embark on strike will do more damage because eventually at the end of the day, you may still come back to do some of their demands. So better to arrest it and avert the strike. So we've gone through the resolution reached, especially the last part of it that it will eventually form a consent judgment for parties. That I think they are doing that, looking at the failures in the past where agreement has been violated. So making it a consent judgment may eventually push or put pressure on parties to comply. So for us, I see labor making a headway with that kind of step. There are some other issues that we are not governed with timeline, such as the refinery, which is the bone. It is the most contested aspect of this demand, that if we must remove subsidy, you don't remove subsidy based on importation of the same product. It means that hike in price has no limit. If you must remove subsidy, let us not depend on local made for that product, because the question is, why was subsidy put in place? The subsidy was put in place because Nigeria could not refine. So how come after 40, 50 years, many decades, and then we are still talking about importation of the same product? A count on failure. So I saw in that MOU that there will be a joint visitation to ascertain progress made in refineries in terms of rehabilitation. That is good, but we need to know when, how soon is this visitation, and what is the intention of the visitation, because federal government had told us a few months ago that refinery will kickstart by December, some of these refineries. So I want to believe that we just have a month to December. So when are they doing this visitation? And then there are other issues in that agreement that you may need to tailor with strength, that labor should not go and sleep. 30 days is just here. And they should put eyes on that agreement and ensure that sequence apply in terms of priority, so that they follow up implementation to satisfy Nigerians. A lot of people are actually looking onto this agreement. But one thing we must say, Nigerians, is you don't just say labor has averted strike again. The question is the intention of proposing strike to labor has been met. And the only thing necessary to do is to suspend the strike, which they've done.
Okay, thanks for that, Comrade. Now, Barrister Mawah, a very interesting question, because it's really surprising, though, that after the first protest was, apologies, after the first, what's it called now? They went on a strike the first time, and then they were about to go the second time before the federal government eventually sat down and had the conversation. Why was this resolution not made before now? Is it that the sector wasn't exactly taking us seriously?
My sister, thank you very much. The same question I was asking myself. Of course, my brother in the studio, of course, he has made an allusion to the fact of trying to commend these people for calling off this whole thing today. But you know, if you ask me sincerely, I actually feel very disappointed in Nigeria Labour Congress today under the leadership of Ajero, because if we cast our mind back to the era of people like Comrade Aliu Shomole, who is today one of the distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and has been, the few period he has been at this rest chamber, we can see how he has been giving the country a very vibrant representation. The point is this: some persons' plan for today had been disrupted by labor. I can tell you this for free. For instance, I was to have a matter today in Osogbo, but because of this uncertainty of labor going on strike or not going on strike today, I could not proceed, because my thinking was that they will continue or they will proceed with the proposed strike. My brother said, the purpose for the proposed strike had been met. But the question agitating my mind, and I know that will be agitating the mind of millions of Nigerians, is what exactly had been met? Is it that the fuel price has been reduced? Is it that now there was, if you look at that document, the Memorandum of Understanding signed by labor leadership and the federal government, you see a position there I think number 6 or thereabout, where they also indicated that 25,000 naira will be transferred to, I think, 15 million Nigerian households, including some of the pensioners, some of the vulnerable pensioners. The question is this: how are we going to determine these 15 million households that this 25,000 naira will be distributed to monthly basis for 3 months? If you sum up 25,000 naira, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a lawyer. If you sum up 25,000 naira to 15 million, you will be amazed at what you will arrive at. The question is, what is the modality they are going to adopt to ascertain these 15 million people? Are they going to go through the villages? Is it going to be on a party line? Is it going to be on a religion line? The point is this: to me, to my mind, as good as it may look like that, 15,000 to 25,000 will be given to households, the present Nigeria situation we are, the reality issue we are facing today, 25,000 cannot even do anything. If you ask me, government should keep that money, whatever amount it is, and look for something developmental, something that would be of a meaningful impact to the people. Now they are looking at removing VAT, this value-added tax, from diesel. The question is this: how many persons in Nigeria today are using diesel? As I speak to you today, I don't think I know the color of diesel. I think I'm a little bit enlightened as I am. Not to talk about my mother in the village. So what will be the impact of diesel, the removal of the value-added tax on diesel to the Nigerian people? So I think if we must take a decision, we must take it squarely. We should be sincere to every decision or every plan that we have decided to undertake on behalf of the Nigerian people. As I speak to you today, the millions of Nigeria are suffering. And NLC, over the year, Nigerian people have seen them as the last hope. Beyond the court, they have seen them as the hope of the masses. But I can assure you, if the NLC decide to propose another strike, nobody will take them seriously. Because as far as I'm concerned, they have not backed their statement with concrete action. And so if you ask me personally, I don't trust them anymore. So what are the jamboree for? You propose strike? Okay, this meeting they decide to do overnight. What stopped them from doing this meeting since the last time they had meeting with the federal government? Why the meeting just a day to the strike? And then we woke up this morning, we're still in uncertainty whether there will be strike or there will be no strike. And they have ended up disrupting the plan people have for themselves today. Personally speaking, I'm not happy with the decision of NLC. If we must take a decision, let us take it and face it headlong, and let's know where we are. If we are not taking it, let's sit down and let's stop deceiving the entire Nigerian people. NLC to me are now becoming more political than they used to be. And that is why it appears that we are no longer getting the result we used to get from NLC during the era of the like of Comrade Adam Saliu Oshomole. And I said it with all sense of honesty, without apology to anybody. The whole thing looked like it's now becoming like a scam. It's now becoming like we are being taken for a ride. It's now become, a friend said something to me this morning that when NLC want to go and see president, they will threaten to go on strike. If they want to go and see people in government, they threaten to go on strike, and then they call them on board for the purpose of resolution. So the resolution today, what impact do you think this resolution have on Nigerian people? They are talking about consent judgment of which matter. The issue of CNG that they are talking about is not part of the matter they have in court. The issue of 25,000 naira for 50 million households is not part of the matter before court. So they are not talking about consent judgment. On what exactly? If I may ask, is it on matters that are not before the court? Because when you talk about consent judgment, by my little understanding as a lawyer, it is based on matter that had already been submitted before court, and the party comes together to say, well, gentlemen, we can't fight anymore. Let's just go back home and settle ourselves amicably. And then you put together your terms of settlement and bring it before court. And they are already matters submitted before court. So when we are not talking about terms of settlement, on what exactly? So I might be wrong. I stand to be corrected by my brother there. But I must tell you, sincerely speaking, and I want to speak the mind of millions of Nigerians on the street today who are passing through this very hard time, that we are not happy with what NLC they are doing.
All right, Barrister Mawah.
Back us up, let us know they are not there.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Comrade Amechi, do you have any response to what Barrister Mawah said?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I share with some of his point, especially when he mentioned the modalities that should accompany the issue of fund distribution. Some of us have never been advocate to fund distribution without measure because it further give room for corruption. And therefore, when we talk about, but one thing you should know is NSC, count it as beautiful as anybody may rely on it. NSC is an institution, workers-based institution. They have primary responsibility in line with their constitution. So when you also plan a strike, you plan a strike based on the interests of workers. And when you are undergoing any meeting in that regard, it's also based on the interests of workers. And interest of workers is about wage, it's about their welfare. Inasmuch in the course of NSC struggle, it benefits the larger part of this country. But we must know that before yesterday, there was nothing on the table. And if all we listed, or rather, all that you saw on that MOU were counted in favor of yesterday's meeting, it became very imperative that the possibility of suspending strike was imminent. Because the question is, no matter how agitated, even in the times of Oshomole, the fact that NSC called for strike, government will still demand you for meeting. The struggle we're changing now, from the ILO and all the conventions that have been passed, is pro-dialogue. Social dialogue has engaged that you can't just go on strike because you want people to say he finally made the strike. No. Without substance, it's difficult to justify strike. So when you say you are going on strike and government have asked you why, the impact of subsidy is what has necessitated the strike notice. Matter before the court is about removal of subsidy and the proposed strike. Everything in that MOU is still saying one thing, palliative with regards to subsidy removal. So the only thing we should be saying is kudos to yesterday's meeting that government has finally made wage award of 35,000 for its workers and encouraging state government and private sectors to do the same. That tells you that they've achieved, as far as labor is concerned, there was an achievement. To ordinary Nigeria, like he said now, that he proposed going to court. Maybe why he didn't go, he shifted it on the ground that there may not be activity today. But over the night, when they signed that agreement, the notice was everywhere also that strike has been suspended. We are not also saying, we are not ignorant of interruption on people's plan. Labor cannot be sensitive to that. But I'm saying that whereby you see government saying, we are giving 25,000 to 15 million Nigerians, what should come to your mind is, these 15 million Nigerians, how are they going to get to them? So that what happened at palliative method will not also apply to this money. Because we have had cases where they pay money and they use that medium to fund themselves. That also must be discouraged. So I am with you in the struggle of transparency with regards to relating 25,000 to individuals. But my question, and which I think is asking, 25,000 is very reasonable to give to somebody that had nothing for 3 months. But what happened after 3 months? Those are the questions that engagement must continue. Issues like this does not end. 3 months after, we are talking about January. In fact, as a matter of fact, October, November, December, the payment exhaust. By 2024, these same 15 million Nigerians will resume a harder lifestyle because you have taught them how to eat and you stop them from eating in January. That is worse. It's better not to rise than to rise and fall in 3 months. That is the challenge I think labor should consider the second leg of engagement.
But Comrade, let's even talk about the realistic aspect of this. How realistic is it that they can reach, just like you said, the palliative period? It didn't reach as much people as they wanted it to reach. And it's easy to plan these things. I was having a conversation yesterday on my show about accountability. Planning, there is no particular structure, no specific plan or method that is going to be deployed. They just say things that they want to do, and then they end up not knowing how to go about it. And I think that's one of the things Barrister Mawah was talking about when he mentioned the realistic aspect of it.
What is the method? What is the modality?
Yes.
Is it based on the poorest people in the village or in the city?
All right, Comrade Amechi.
It's bizarre.
All right, Barrister Mawah, please just hold on. Comrade Amechi wants to respond to that.
Yes, I agree with you. The question is, the question we are asking is what we expect government to do, not NSC. NSC should rather engage this same question in following modality, because I am very certain that for them to have put that on paper, the question of modality, though was not mentioned in the MOU, but must be a yardstick for implementation. There is no way. But what I would tell us here is it is doable. It is doable to get to vulnerables in this country. It's doable to get 15 million Nigerians using the structures we already have. Through the state government, indeed, we must get to rural areas. Those rural areas, they have kings, they have emir, they have all that lead them from the. So the same way, I remember I was a member of NDE, I'm a board member of NDE, where we approve public works fund in the rate of 20,000 for 3 months for 774,000 Nigerians. And it was meant that each local government will have 1,000. So in that case, the question is minimal. We now transfer the question of where are the 1,000 people in the local government. So when you have 50 communities in the local government, you distribute. So there will be a template, a transparent system that will show that every community has been given certain number. And it's not left for the community to actually pick these same people. They could be widows. Because when you say vulnerable, you are talking about people who lack ability to care for themselves. You don't look at able men who refuse to actually find something to eat, and they call themselves ready to eat men. No. So we must consider these people using the mechanism on how to check vulnerability group in this country. I think it's doable, but I fear if they have put such measure in place. And if they have not, let us jointly prevail on labor to actually re-engage federal government. That fund must not be released until the system to disburse that fund is known to Nigeria. So that when that money is coming out, everybody will be asking themselves. The same federal government made law through National Assembly to actually care for PIA, for the oil producing communities. And the PIA was interpreted on how they can get individuals from those communities. They can also make a template that will reflect a sharing formula that money will no longer be a waste. Mr. President told Nigerians that the essence of removing subsidy is to save money for development. Now, if we are spending that kind of money and we don't have a guiding template to it, it will also mean waste. So we will never allow federal government to just, for purposes of announcing figure, just announce figure 15 million. Don't forget they have done school feeding in this country. Till today, the transparency of that school feeding was not known to Nigerians. All of the children we know, the school they attend, nobody visited them with food. So where are these? Were they now giving it to ghost students? But millions of money were voted, billions of money were voted into that scheme. But so you see government talking about market money. A lot of cash flow scheme were put in place. But because method approach to them, we are not transparent. And then people hide under it and siphon the whole fund. So if we don't also do something useful, even the 100 million naira that they have agreed to vote into CNG, if it's not properly guided, it will also be diverted. So we can never argue against ourselves in that order. We must be focused to push federal government to do the needful and ensure that the right people get the real money. Otherwise, it will be counted as part of the corruption that we are suffering from.
All right, Comrade Amechi, I would also like to ask, in terms of, when we're still talking about accountability and all, in that resolution that was made, we didn't hear anything about a specific date that this disbursement will be made or that the changes will be effected. And, one would expect that a particular date is given so that at least they can hold them accountable to their words. Since we're still talking about accountability, at least the ballpark estimate of, okay, when we expect this to happen. But we didn't hear anything about that. Was that embedded and we didn't see it?
No, the way we go with agreement is though we are not there, but when I saw MOU, the place I saw that took my heart was the period of time in which the action was suspended. So when I saw that NSC suspend their strike for 30 days, it means that is the time frame for implementation. Okay. So that is the most logical way to put the time frame to host the entire items on that document. So the question is, both the visit to refineries, release of fund, even though they may not do all, but it means that significant implementation of that MOU would be put in place. Right. I think that is what they did.
Okay, Barrister Mawah, we have now heard that they want to give 25,000 naira to 15 million people in Nigeria. Is this a way to distract people? Because I know that we've complained severally about the minimum wage. So is something going to be done about the minimum wage, or is this just a way to distract people from, fighting for the increment of the minimum wage?
Thank you. I think the best answer is what you have just provided. I think that 25,000 naira, whatever they call it, I don't want to subscribe myself to it. It's just like dangling a biscuit or sweet to a little baby crying to stop him or her from crying, with no due respect to all of the parties involved. Now, look at it. There's a proposed 35,000 naira the grant, I think they call it grant to worker, the federal government workers, call it 35,000, which is, according to them, it will commence from September for the next 3 months. And then the 25,000 naira is to commence from October. Now, you see, like I was trying to say, they said to say something is very easy, but the doing it is what is important. I don't trust people for what they say. I trust them for what they do. That is my way of doing things. Now, if you're going to do this for the next 3 months, effect from October, we are already in October 3rd. Now we have not started planning. Having in mind the fact that failing to plan is planning to fail. If we have not started planning how to execute all of that, and we have to commence it in this same October, we're talking about a country with over 200 million people. Then you have to determine the poorest people, drawing out 15 million from them. If you ask me, there are over half of these 2 million, over 2 million Nigerians. We have over half of them that are poor. Now, which means we're talking about 100 and something poor people. How do you drop 15 from these poor people within the space? In short, by their own standard, the implementation has commenced. If it's going to commence from October. So how do we determine it? How do we draw out these people from these 100 people, draw the 15 from them, sincerely and realistically? You see, if you ask me, all of this whole thing, mark today is 3rd of May, October, and I'm not praying, so I don't want to talk like a prophet of doom. I can assure you, the 30th of this month, there will be another proposed strike. 1st of November or 2nd, NLC will propose another strike. And it will be this rigmaroling, this same issue that led to the calling of the strike that they will use to dagger at us again.
Okay, Barrister Mawah, apologies for interrupting you, but while we're still being realistic, right, what would you have suggested that the course of action should be? Because it's easy for us to say, oh, the NLC didn't do this, the federal government should have done this, but what exactly should have been the right course of action?
Thank you. If you ask me, before yesterday, I'm involved in some election petition tribunal as I speak to you. Some of the persons involved were already worried. The impact, the implication of what the strike, the proposed strike, will cause to some of those cases in court, particularly the election matters. It's a politician, from what I've come to discover or know them to be, if there is anything that is not affecting them personally, they are not ready to commit to it. It will not have been out of place. Everybody, 1 week straight, 1 week we caused a whole lot of damage. This 1 week, no movement, both in air, in land, and in the sea. Let all of us feel the impact of what the common men are feeling. And if that is done, I can assure you, you see, some of these things we are looking like they cannot be done. We can do it within a very short period, and we have a concrete plan what we have now is a memorandum. And as a lawyer, if you talk about memorandum, it's not an agreement. It's only an intention to contract. Memorandum is not a contract. It's only an intention to contract. So we need to have something concrete, something that is dependable, something, yeah, okay, like I said earlier, they're talking about this memorandum being taken to court and being adopted as a term of settlement before court, and it will become a consent judgment. How does it work like that? When are they going to file it? The party they will need to put their respective thing before submitting it before court. And then you are not telling me you have to do that and it will become a consent judgment in a week. I mean, sincerely speaking, like I said earlier, it is like dangling the skid before a crying child to just prevent him from crying temporarily.
Right.
So what I expect NLT and what I'm calling on NLC to do now is, if the government cannot meet what is their responsibility, then NLC has a duty to call. We need to call everybody out and let's stop the movement of everybody.
Okay.
Both in air, land, and everywhere.
All right.
And it took 3-4 days. The government will be sincere. They will take up rightful action for everybody.
All right, thank you for that. Comrade Amechi, do you agree with what Barrister Mawah said, or do you think that the 25,000 naira is a good start?
You know, if we are also sincere, because I like the way you put it, you talk about sincerity. If truly we are sincere, if you judge 25,000 naira with a millionaire, you'll be making a big mistake. When they use the word vulnerable, my brother lawyer that is talking and myself sitting here, we are not part of that money. And don't forget, this government want to prove a point. I'm not talking for them because they've not even done whatever, even they've not initiated implementation of what they've just agreed. But one thing must come first. Agreement comes before implementation. And there's no way we can continue to predict negatively that we know they will not do it. And we've not given them time to do so. So when we talk about benefit of doubt, you must reach an agreement and allow for implementation. Now, federal government have said, our own workers, by law, we can award wage. And we are awarding 35,000 to federal workers. For Nigerians not to also ask federal government that you've just attended to workers, what about the poor vulnerables that are also suffering? They now said they will grant them 25,000 naira. Where I have issue is not to undermine 25,000, is to say what happened after the 3 months. But if we are going to be voting statement as to undermine the value of 25,000 to somebody who has not seen 5,000 for 3 months, no, will not be fair. So I want to believe that that very achievement of 25,000 naira to 15 million Nigerians is very appropriate. The only challenge I foresee is that you're going to teach them how to eat, and eventually they may lose eating after 3 months. That is the area I want federal government to look at. The issue of diesel, don't forget, organization run with engine, diesel engine. And then when production would have taken the chunk of expenses for organizations, it leads to hike in price of goods and services. So when they now say they are removing VAT, the target beneficiaries there is price of goods eventually will drop, especially those goods that are locally made. Price of services, including him, even as a lawyer, when they are charging their client now, they will tell them that activities have gone up. Though there's some houses, we have generators that carries diesel. And if you are granting VAT free on diesel, it means the price eventually will drop from source. So it's going to affect a number of organizations. So that eventually, because we don't have much we produce in Nigeria, it becomes a problem. That what are the goods that eventually it will affect. But I know cost of running business in Nigeria is high. Cost of even running servicing organization is high. So by reduction of diesel, there may be a plus. But I must tell you, 25,000 naira that is granted to vulnerables in this country is a welcome development. We may be above 15 million. How would they get to the 15 million first?
Okay, Comrade, I want to really quickly ask this, right? You did mention that you and the barrister are not among the vulnerables. I might be, I might not be. But what I'm trying to say is there is a gap here, right? So there are the vulnerables in the society, and then there are those who are who have, who are well-to-do. But there are also those who are in the middle, the people who are average, but are still bearing the brunt of, especially since the removal of fuel subsidy. So if you're giving the money to the vulnerables, and let's say it can reach them in one piece, the vulnerables are okay. Let's even assume those who have money are okay. What happens to those in the middle?
Yeah, some of this is the indices may not favor equally. But I must tell you that first, federal government have decided to take care of its workers. In that agreement, they urge, though lawyers will tell you that is not strong enough to compel governors to actually give their wage award. Private sectors is also expected to give their wage award. Just imagine that the workforce, both private and public workers, have been taken care of in terms of wage award. Now, they have also, in that agreement, said that in 1 month time, they will put committee in place to kickstart the minimum wage negotiation, meaning they are not planning to bury the negotiation. And don't forget, the minimum wage is only due by next year. So what they've done is, in the time being, I think that is the area, some of us actually called for that wage award. I made presentation on that more than 4 times, 2-3 weeks ago. So we want to believe that he has heeded to that pressure to give wage award as a sign of being sensitive. The other middle class, there are businessmen in Nigeria. There are businessmen and women in this country whom believe that when price of petrol goes up, the cost of their services will increase. So those people have another primary way of getting their money back. But there are vulnerables that are not in that, they are neither working nor doing any business. As such, government have targeted these 2 groups. Because when you are working, you are restricted from doing certain businesses.
Right.
And let me also correct that you are also not part of the vulnerables. I think we should keep that.
All right, Barrister Mawah, very, very quickly, what is your hope, from all of this? What do you hope in few seconds?
Well, sincerely speaking, I don't have too much hope in the whole of this whole thing. The reason is so simple, like judging from where I started from. It will be difficult to sincerely determine 15 million poor people in Nigeria. Because by the time this money is disbursed to the various states, it will be shared based on political line. If you are not in my party, well, you are not poor. I can assure you that is where we are going to end it. So I think sincerely, government need to take Nigeria people seriously.
Right.
Thank God, everybody believes Tinubu can. Looking at his background or judging from the background where it's coming from, that you see things better than what we used to have in the past. So we sincerely hope that all of this will be turned around so that we don't begin to run around the street, NLC here and there all the time to call government attention to what we want.
Hopefully so. I really want to take this opportunity to say thank you to you both, gentlemen. You have extensively discussed this and shed more light on it. Thank you so much, Barrister Mawah, and of course, Comrade Amechi, for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. We're going on a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you the second story. Stay with us.